Hello everyone and welcome back to another Godzilla Battle Live video, and today for you I have a deck that is going to counter this meta. A few things to go over before we start. One, I had just have a few battles just looping continuously because I really just wanted to put all my attention on explaining the deck throughout the whole video. There's some gameplay so you can kind of see how it works. There's some little characters on the screen because I think they're the MVPs of the deck, and then there's two different decks on the screen. So the main reason that I have two decks on the screen is because one is more for pay to win, or not even pay to win, I would more just say veteran players, and then the other one is for free to play. The free to play one I would think is probably the one on the right side. Is not, you know what, at this point it's kind of a toss up because I am now also realizing that a lot of people do not have access to the 10th Angel, who is a critical component of the deck. But if you don't have 10th Angel, we're going to talk about characters you can swap in and out, which is fine. Either way, the left side is the free-to-play version because everyone in that deck has been in the game for a decent amount of time now that you should probably have them considerably leveled up. The only exception would probably be -1. Most players who have been playing longer than December of 2023 will have the 10th Angel. New players, I got something on my eye. New players, I'm sorry, but you're not going to have 10th Angel, but we can make do because Mogera was given away for free. The brand new Mogera was given away for free this season just by logging in for 9 days. And you know what? He's an extremely suitable component in this deck. No questions asked. So, after that, I wanted to also mention, optimally, you're going to be using the Space Godzilla, the new Space Godzilla, and the new Mogera. The defense up that the new Mogera gives is just it's unlike anything else in the game at the moment. It is super strong, and the new Space Godzilla also incredibly strong. The constant barrage of crystals is great, and those crystals will counteract the enemy Space Godzilla's crystals. So both the Mogera and the new Space Godzilla incredibly good. The new Space Godzilla, however, at the time that this video goes live, is not available for free anywhere, just through an offer and then through your expeditions and stuff like that. So he's harder to get. But also at the time of this, like I said earlier, Mogera has already been given out. Okay, 9 days have passed. I think this is recorded on the 10th day of the season, so plenty of time to at least have gotten the Mogera. If you're a little behind, no worries on that. Whew. With that out of the way, let me break down exactly what I have cooked up here. I made this deck on Monday or Tuesdays when I shared it into one of the Discords, and I was like, this is kind of what I'm cooking with. You know, I'm kind of observing what people are using in the game to compete with the meta, and then, you know, some other suggestions that people have given me, and things that I'm just looking through myself. The most important factor in this deck is the 10th Angel. The 10th Angel has incredible reach. He flies, he has piercing, and he is immune to on-death explosions. Something big to understand is the Space Godzilla Fukuoka battle crystals count as on-death explosions. If you go into the stats page for that Space Godzilla and you look at the crystals, it says explosion damage. It says explosion on death in the info. Those are on-death explosions. The 10th Angel is immune, completely immune to them. I believe also, and she's not on here, Ava Unit 1 also is immune to explosions as long as she's running. When she's running, the AT field is up, she's immune to explosions. So she would work too, because she would be technically immune to the crystals, but I actually haven't seen anyone run Ava 01 against the crystals, and I'm pretty sure she would stop to target the crystals, and then that would cancel the AT field. But in the event that she doesn't target the crystals for whatever reason, she would be immune. So the 10th Angel being completely immune to the crystals, amazing body blocker, amazing. Shinden and Leo are getting cooked alive this season because it is a lot harder for them to compete with all the crystals flying around just doing constant damage, right? Or stopping them in their tracks. This guy doesn't give a shit. He will go to target the crystals, and if he doesn't charge up fast enough and kill them before they even reach him, which he can do, he'll just eat them for face value, and nothing's going to happen. Completely neutralizes the crystals. I've taken this deck, both versions of this deck, into rank 66 plus gameplay, and there are some top players running the Fukuoka Space Godzilla that will just stop dropping him when the 10th Angel is on the field, because once they see that that's not working on the 10th Angel, Fukuoka becomes almost a dead card. The more cards that you have that make what Fukuoka and Mogera do null and void, the better. There's nothing you can really do to stop Mogera at this time, but Fukuoka for sure 4th or 10th Angel is an extremely, I mean extremely hard counter. Okay? And he's got piercing. So that feeds into what I want to talk about with GMK Godzilla, who also is turning out to be an MVP as well. So, GMK Godzilla has really solid reach, really solid stats, a really nice AoE, and then on spawn and on death, he will do, what is it, minus 10% health debuff, right? They'll take 10% more damage, something like that, or whatever. He's putting that debuff down. Or no, they do less damage, I'm sorry. It's 10% less damage, not a health debuff, it's 10% less damage. That's good, right? Just on spawn, pretty solid. His range, he will shoot the crystals down before they reach him. Awesome, love that. The crux of all of this is characters with long enough range that they either are shooting down the crystals and have time to do something else, or they're like immune to the crystals in one form or another. He is shooting them down before they reach him. That is phenomenal, okay? The on-death and the on-spawn abilities, also phenomenal, and the AoE, phenomenal. Just like the 4th Angel, or 10th Angel Piercing is phenomenal. Because of Mogera. Mogera, the way you play with him, is he is giving buffs to your enemy's units, but your units as well if you're using him. A lot of players are grouping their characters up to support them with Mogera. If you can hit as many of them as possible, you are going to not make Mogera's ability null and void, but you are definitely going to make it really tough for your opponent to come back from that. The 4th Angel, that's piercing, kind of counts as AoE. GMK Godzilla has AoE. Megalon in these suggestions I have has AoE. The Fukuoka Godzilla has AoE. Mothra 92 has AoE. -1 has AoE. You see the pattern here? Area effects, so good. So good right now. They're hot right now. They're so hot right now. I don't remember what even movie that's from. I don't even remember what I'm quoting, but I seen it on Twitter. You want to get the piercing out and the immunity with the 10th Angel. You want to then use GMK to get the debuff down if they're close enough to get that debuff. Awesome, very good late game. And then AoE, his range is solid, his health is solid, his stats are just all around solid. A lot of characters are being grouped up. So that is why I have them too. Now, we have to talk about the leaders for this deck. I've gone over it many, many times. I am more partial to long-range leaders as opposed to AoE leaders. I just prefer having the long range because if I can stop a character like that Mega Gearus that was just on screen, if I can stop him a couple feet away from my leader, I can just support my units with the long range. But AoE leaders like Desghidorah, for example, Desghidorah, it will shoot down the Space Godzilla crystals once they come in range. The Space Godzilla Fukuoka has the best current range in the game. He will start on one side of the map, and those crystals, if unopposed, will move all the way to the other side. All the way to the other side of the map. That is phenomenal. You want leaders that are going to shoot it down. I like using Ultima. I like using Gamera, because they have long range. But they are single target leaders, except if you use their ability. I'm not using their leader ability on a couple crystals. I'm going to shoot one crystal down, but I'm going to take damage from another. Not super great, but you see right there on screen what that Desghidorah just did? He just destroyed both crystals in one shot, took no damage. That is what you want. That is what you want. And I have on the deck list Desghidorah and Mecha King Ghidorah, because they both have AoE, and both of their leader abilities charge you up energy. Okay? This deck, or both of them I guess, are chock full of low-cost characters with big impact, okay? Shinden, Gigan 2004, Megalon, Mothra, Mogera, all insane cards. All of them are so good, right? And then you get a little bit extra energy for everyone else. Now, you don't have to use this deck exactly like how I have it listed. My deck videos are normally just suggestions on what I think you should be doing, never really a big catch-all, this is the best. I think maybe I've had like twice, like straight up, these are the best decks. These are more like recommended decks. I recommend that you use an AoE leader with decent enough range, okay? GMK, and the 10th Angel if you got him. If you don't have him, don't worry. If you have Mogera, throw Mogera in because he's rentable this season and he's going to get you a ton of mileage, even at a low rentable quality. Just having that damage boost is phenomenal. Space Godzilla is, of course, a good slot in this season because of the rent. Either Space Godzilla is good in this deck. If you do not have the Fukuoka Space Godzilla, okay, you can run the classic Space Godzilla, who also is rentable during this event. And he will put up the 2 crystals, give your team a damage boost. Bob's your uncle. Awesome ability right there. You can use him, okay? -1. I use -1 because most maps, he's pretty solid to you know, start cutting your opponent off at the kneecaps. That's great. His explosion is fantastic. He's just all around really good. I have Megalon on here because he also can do what GMK does with the AoE and the debuff, but he does a debuff on every time he hits, and it hits with the AoE, so anyone caught up in his AoE is getting that debuff. He's not the strongest character, but he's rentable this season, so you might have him at a more usable level than some of your other 4-stars, especially if you're a newer player. So Megalon, I think, is a good slot. I've always been a big proponent of Megalon. I've always thought that he's pretty decent. No one really wants to use him or capitalize on him, but I think for 3 costs, he is pretty solid, and I think he just got a buff recently. I don't really remember, you know, in one ear out the other with the buffs, but yeah. This is the deck I've been running, or the 2 decks that I have been running, and it has just been so good. I have been chopping up meta decks left and right. You do not have to use the exact characters that I have. There's merely a suggestion, but I really think if you kind of follow this philosophy of characters with good enough range that they can shoot down the crystals and a leader that can defend himself from the crystals, you're going to have a better time. AoE is especially potent this season because of how many characters are going to be grouped up with the Mogeras. Mogera is going to keep a lot more units alive, so just keep that in mind. Even if you have a lot of AoE going on, that Mogera is going to help the enemy's units stay alive. But the more of them you hit, the better it's going to be, and especially if you start hitting them when that debuff goes down, because it's not always up 100% of the time. That debuff will eventually go down. Having a lot of AoE, piercing, range, that is the kicker here. Having a good leader ability, really, really solid, unless your leader is Ultima, who I think is one of the best leaders, but I know he's kind of fallen off. Having a good leader ability, having good range on the leader to defend yourself from the crystals, especially powerful, having a good presence on the field, and not a very expensive deck. Okay, Mogera is really cheap. There are a lot of really cheap meta cards right now. Having a super expensive deck, not going to do you any favors. You need a good solid mix. I think these 2 suggestions are really good, a combination of the 2. I especially think if that you have even a relatively okay level 10th Angel, like level 20 or higher, this season, if you throw him in, you're going to get a ton of mileage out of him. A ton of mileage out of him. Okay? So, that is all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.